originally in Spanish.
There is something I don't understand. The Earth would be in the Taurus constellation? To be more precise, in the Taurus's butt. What would it mean that the ship's access through Taurus to Earth through a portal? Thank you.
This can't be known, or I can't say, or I don't have the answer, because it depends on how you consider the constellations, how you define each one of them, and that is very subjective. From Earth, the constellations are seen in the sky, so the Earth is not part of any of them. It is only the point of observation. But if some scientist or astronomer says that it is part of Taurus for X or Z reasons, then that is subjective. From the point of view of space maps of stellar navigation, the Pleiades have nothing to do with the Earth, nor Taurus either, as in the Earth belonging to that constellation. For those who live in M45, the Earth is not part of Taurus, since it would be closer to the Hyades, where Aldebaran is. No constellations are observed as on Earth from the point of view of M45, or only some, like Triangulum, Taurus, Pleiades, Orion, among a few others. But as the point of observation changes, also the interpretation of the constellations.
So the Earth would not belong to any constellation. Only by approximation it would be Hades? Not Taurus.
The constellations as they are known on Earth are terrestrial interpretations and concepts. Yes, it is true that some ideas of giving shapes of people or animals or objects to the constellations are common outside the Earth, but not to indicate from where to where they are, or which stars are included and which are not. That varies a lot. As Swaruu said, yes, it depends on what culture you ask about constellations. It will always vary. As for portals, a natural star portal is not going to lead to one place, ever. However, it does have one or two dominant locations that it will usually take one to. And under that definition, the portal that is in the anus of Taurus will lead to the Triangulum portal and to this region where Earth is. A natural portal, with entrances of multiple kinds, be it gravity holes or shafts, classic portal, black holes, and suns, can be seen as a set of entry and exit points, and some only entry points, black holes, intertwined inside, touching one another like a huge tree full of energetic ramifications, all existing within low vibrational energy strata within the ether field, because even there are levels. So it can also be seen as a layout of destinations or portal roads, like a subway train map of a large city, or as a vascular system in a living being, all from the ether side, where a spacecraft using this system will be able to modify its internal frequency using its engines to adjust which branch of the energetic web of portals it is compatible with, thus steering or guiding where it should go and where it will exit from the available exit points according to its spatial maps. This type of navigation is very common among the vast majority of races and cultures with low interstellar level, being that if a spacecraft were to enter a natural space portal and just pass through it without any frequency control of its own, it would just be carried by the current to where most of the energetic flow of the very portal system of the ether side goes. This can also be seen as a river system, where there are main rivers that carry most of the current and other secondary branches. If this is the case, the drifting spacecraft, with no energetic control to steer it, will only pass through the most dominant branches of the energetic flow of the portal system. This energetic flow is nothing more than a vectored gravity motion or flux. With this description, a spacecraft entering through the anus of Taurus will exit in triangulum by simple association of gravitational flux quantity, being that to steer a spacecraft towards the terrestrial sun, an output frequency modulation of the toroidal engines of a spacecraft is needed. Although minimal, it is necessary. Other civilizations, such as Taygeta and most of the advanced ones within the Federation itself, do not need to use this natural space portal transit system because they simply manufacture their own wormholes, for lack of better words, with total precision and freedom, as this will take them directly to their destination immediately. However, the use of natural portals can still be used for navigation in case of ship-to-ship combat tactics, as it does give advantages of being able to hide the energetic signal before each jump into hyperspace, making the detection of this energetic footprint minimal or impossible, as it is masked within the very huge energetic flow within these natural portals. Natural portals are also widely used to facilitate or expedite the transit of ultra-heavy classification spacecraft, sphere level or biosphere level, where such craft have so much mass that it is more comfortable to traverse great distances using a combination of the energy flux of the large natural portals and that generated by the engines of such craft to steer or guide its direction and exit position out of this elaborate natural portal transit system. This is the reason why it is common to see large-size ships exiting from Sun 13. It is wrong to think that they take energy from the sun. They do not need it. They only use the natural portal current to save their own energy, as would a large container ship on Earth that would commonly use the natural ocean currents to save fuel and time, as they are extremely heavy ships. It is the same, but in space. Remembering that the huge spheres that are seen coming out of the sun do not represent the real contour of the outgoing sphere or biosphere ship, but of the gravitational field and its shields that surround them, being that the biosphere ship is much smaller. Large classic ship coming out of the solar portal. This is what I mean. That what you see in black is not the ship, but the gravitational disturbance caused by the engines and shields of the outgoing ship, being that the hull dimensions of such a ship are much smaller, about the size of the Earth's moon, for example. Such a ship would be in the center. The black tail would be its wake energetic disturbance moving and altering the solar plasma, like the wake of a large ship leaves foam behind it in the sea, being that the sun is not a thermonuclear ball, as a terrestrial science says, but it is a gravity node flowing in your direction. It is light. It is gravity in high vibrational density. That's why a spacecraft can go in and out of the sun with no problem, because it's just energy. It's not like trying to ride a bicycle through a bonfire. As has been explained before, it is the complex and varied range of radiation in many energy bands that hits the Earth and causes a reaction where the result is heat. And this is mostly and especially near the surface and not in the upper atmosphere. Now, I should make it clear that from one natural space portal to another, there will be main flows, as I said above, movements of large amounts of gravity in a specific dominant flux or direction. But ultimately, all natural portals, and artificial ones for that matter, connect to each other on the ether side, no matter how large or small. Original. And the one above explains the energetic dynamics of the sphere ship. That toroid is its shield and its energetic flux. I made this image to illustrate the topic above. Note, from the image I sent you, I left the sphere ship visible in size, but it must be said that the size is or can be merely illustrative, as it should be much smaller. It's just that if I make it to scale, it gets lost and no longer looks like a sphere ship. I would need a much higher resolution image of that solar disturbance.
By the way, I don't remember us talking about the composition of the sun. It's not a thermonuclear ball, but what is it made of?
It is gravitational electromagnetic plasma in a complex cluster of varying frequencies, the output of a much larger energetic machinery or pump that is in the ether, and is only seen from a low density perception with the lens of one's understanding. It is an exit, the exit pole of a complex compound energetic toroid. It is an exit hole, but because it is of high densities and dimensions, it is seen as a sphere. A hole in 3 dimensions is a sphere.
But we only perceive the sun on one side and the black hole on the other. But we cannot see it in full with our perception. We cannot see that toroid with our perception. It is difficult to represent that in a graph.
Yes, the energy comes from behind the sun, from other planes. and all suns are connected to each other from the ether side. And these connections are used as wormholes for spacecraft navigation.
I understand, yes. And someone asked me, does the sun have more connection to the source than a human? Or do we all have the same connection?
From the total point of view, everything is the source. Everything is or has the same connection because it just is. But from a certain point of view, a sun would have more connection than a person, a human, or whatever race.
And look at this question. Why do suns manifest with the counterpart of black holes? Because it is a toroid?
Yes, of course. It seems that the toroid is the base energetic dynamics for the formation of nodes that manifest what is later perceived as matter, passing first through the energy state, although they are the same. Everything is a toroid, from an electron to a galaxy or supercluster of galaxies.
Yes, even us in some way, right?
Yes, from the toroidal base, the consciousness is sculpting something that does not seem toroid at first glance, like a sculpture of Michelangelo. Because from that block of matter, you have turned the leftover pastes either into smaller pieces of matter or into energy, leaving the creative intention of the sculpture. But it is still a toroid. So the suns manifest that way simply because that's the energy flow of a big toroid like that. A point of entry and a point of exit. Black hole entry, sun exit, in simplistic terms. Because in reality, a sun can also be an entrance if you have adjusted the frequency of your ship to be compatible with the parts of the same toroidal pump that move in reverse, depending on what density or existential frequency of matter it is seen from. Black holes can still be exits. The problem with that is that the amount of energy to use the reverse flow part in a black hole is too much for a ship to emulate with its total toroidal immersion engines. It is almost impossible, or impractical at least. That is why it is said that a black hole can only be an entrance. In the same way, there are supermassive suns that for the same reason can only be exits, being impossible to enter them by the high flow of energy in countless existential frequencies, densities, dimensions, which is or would be like going up a waterfall with a rowboat. And there are also low energy noble black holes that, although they are black holes, they are entrances and exits. And those are the most common. But they are called by another name or names: gravity wells, or simply space portals.
Quite an answer, thank you. Look at this other question. As the sun is radioactive, as there is a greater flare wave, as they want to call it, being radioactive, in the same way it would affect the electromagnetics of the Earth and human beings?
Yes, that is true. However, it is not something that happens all the time. It is possible, yes, and I know that for a fact. But believe me, in this day and age, where the cabal sows chaos and distractions everywhere, that is not on the table, nor should you worry about it. Even if they tell you that it happened somewhere because of an electrical failure, local or massive, Rest assured that it was planned and executed with an agenda behind it, with technology. It has nothing to do with the sun. Considering that they could use a large flare that may be more or less unusual, they can be predicted, to justify their blackout or electrical problem, blaming it on the sun.
And they would have nothing to do with birds falling to the ground or dolphins becoming disoriented and airplanes having problems with their electronics. That would be more 5G, right?
That is clearly technological, because of artificial microwave frequencies. It's not because of the sun, and it's not because the Earth is reversing poles. That is artificial, like what happened in Chihuahua, Mexico.
Because biology is already adapted by design to not be affected by the sun in this way.
And not to so much artificial electromagnetic radiation.
Okay, thank you. Look at this other question. I would say no. Robert, can you land on the sun? What would happen if a spacecraft landed on it? Can you traverse its surface?
You can't. There is no surface. It's just energy. If you go in the direction where you can, you just enter the wormhole that feeds the sun from behind, from the ether.
It would be something like a gas sphere or not. In density, I mean. Or like a sphere of water?
Yes, or a welder's plasma torch, but in 3D, going out in all directions.
Okay, I have more questions. If the sun is a living being, what does it feed on? With whom does it communicate? With other suns or with the beings in its system? Can it communicate with us?
Yes, but it does not communicate with you or us, or whoever, as you would expect, but as an energetic symbiosis that holds a common density or a common frequency. Because here, whether we are from outside the solar system or not, we are under the direct influence of the dominant frequency of Sun 13. Yes, it communicates with other suns, but it does so with energy, and it does so using those energy flows that form and are the wormholes that connect all the suns that exist. That flow or flux of energy is gravity, and it is a flow of creative attention at high frequency. It is consciousness, ideas, ultra-complex thoughts that escape our comprehension because they are so vast. The communication network between the suns on the ether side can be compared to a network of neurons in a brain. But taking into account the principle of non-locality, everything will be a single sun, and everything would be the source. What separates into many suns and planets and people are the ideas that hold each of those things and concepts. And you can navigate that neural dendritic network by using it as a means of transportation or wormholes for the transit of ships. Because it is here where my not given topic yet would come in. Distances as they are said on Earth, that of astronomical units or AUS or light years and all that, that is only from the human point of view and understanding. For an advanced interstellar civilization, distances are very short in perception. I could compare the perception of distance as seeing a whole galaxy as a small country, where it would take hours at most to travel from any point to any other point, leaving distances as a perception limited to human understanding based on the limitations of their science. Being that the measures of travel of a ship are by frequencies and in perception by sit time, ship's internal time, or internal perception of the crew of a ship.